Welcome to the Three Inning Fan Show with me, Kelley Franco. I am so excited about today's show because I have the host of my favorite baseball show on, Sal Licata. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Kelly. Thank you for the kind words. I'm glad you enjoy baseball night in New York.
I really do. So, folks, every night on SNY at 6 o'clock, it's on. We record it every day and we watch it over dinner. And I know what you're thinking. Why don't you talk to your husband, Kelley? Well, I do, but just during the commercials.
Well, I'm glad you enjoy the show. We have, obviously, as you know, Kelly, a bunch of different panelists and, people who bring different perspectives, whether it's former players, former general managers, former, front office members, or even different, writers all around the game. So I love doing the show. It's a lot of fun. We appreciate the support.
Yeah, and first of all, a lot of your analysts have been on my show, which
Yeah.
has been great. But you also do the 10 to 2 show with BT on WFAN 660. Folks, you got to be listening to that too. Your show was a little easier for you today, though, right? Because Aaron Boone did all the talking.
Yeah, I know. We had, sometimes it's okay because you get a little bit of a break, but really we want to talk and give our opinion. So we had Boone and Cashman addressing the media with their year-end press conferences. So that was, took up really the second half of the show from 12 to about 1:30. So different type of show, but got your Yankee fill hearing from Boone and Cashman for sure.
It sounds like there's going to be some guys starting on the IL next year. I guess Volpe with his shoulder surgery, and Rodón had a procedure too.
Yeah, Volpe, that was news to me that he was going to be out opening day. I don't know if they confirmed. I think they confirmed it, but still not 100% sure. Basically, he can't swing for the next 4 months. And then Boone said that he can't dive for another 2 months. That's 6 months total, which means that would take you through opening day. So I would expect Volpe, and I think Cashman did say they're going to have a different starting shortstop on opening day, which is not good for them. That's in Cashman's words. So that was surprising. Rodón, you mentioned as well, Kelley. He's going to be missing the beginning of the season because he had a procedure for bone spurs in his elbow or something like that. No Cole. He's not going to be ready for opening day. So Yank's a little banged up before the season even gets going here, before the offseason gets going, let alone the regular season.
Right, and Schmidt too is he's going to be gone probably till midseason, right?
Yeah, he had his Tommy John surgery in August, was it, or something like that? I forget the exact time, but oh no, I know what it is. I think he'll be back. If you do the timeline, he'll be back somewhere around July or August next year.
Oh boy. Well, both New York teams have some work to do this offseason, but the Mets this week they had, as you guys like to say on Baseball Night in New York, actual news this week because they hired two new coaches. They hired Jeff Albert as he had a fancy name like lead hitting instructor, which I guess is like when we used to inflate our resumes when we were in our 20s. I think he's the hitting coach. But then they got Kai Correa as the bench coach, which I thought was an interesting choice. And I also kind of thought it was like a sneaky interesting choice. And I was wondering what your thoughts were on it.
I think that Kai Correa, now I know nothing about him other than what we've just read recently, right? I'd be lying to you if I said that I heard of him prior. I think that the Mets view him as an asset to their organization with his ability to apply the information, analytics, data, whatever you want to say, in a maybe a metrical way as far as the defense goes. I mean, that's been his thing when he was with whether it's the Giants or obviously Cleveland. So they look at Kai Correa and say, we want to get him in our organization. We think he could be an asset. What's the role for him? And they determined that it would be bench coach. So I guess it's going to be a good thing. My issue is not with Kai Correa. My issue is that if I hire a manager, I want the manager to pick the staff. And the Mets just don't do that. And many teams don't do that anymore. It's just an old school way of thinking. So I wave the white flag and give up. And it is what it is. And really, Kelley, it shouldn't be that big of a deal anyway. We're talking about bench coaches and hitting coaches. Like it's about the players. Get good players in here. You don't have to worry about who the coaches are.
Well, I don't know if you read Will Salmon, our mutual friend Will Salmon's piece in The Athletic this week, and that's where I learned about Kai Correa as well because I hadn't heard of him. And Will was saying that he's an up and coming managerial candidate, and I thought it was interesting that and I guess it was Stearns's pick, and it seems like you think the same thing that it was
Yes.
Stearns's
Yeah.
pick. So when Stearns picked him to be the bench coach, I wondered, I mean, is he like waiting in the wings in case Mendoza gets off to a cold start? Do you think
I
that?
I don't think that myself. Like, I put it this way. I'm not saying he can't replace Mendoza if that's the case. I don't believe that's why he was hired. I mean, you could also make the case that maybe Carlos Beltran could be the manager in waiting. I don't know the inner workings of what will happen in the event that Mendoza and the Mets get off to a slow start and they fire Mendoza. I have no idea. I do fully believe Stearns believes in Carlos Mendoza, and I don't think that this hire had anything to do with having Kai Correa transition to being the next manager in the event that Mendoza doesn't get it. I believe Stearns believes Mendy's the right guy for the job. I believe they believe they're going to have success. And I believe that they wanted Kai Correa just because he's an asset to their organization.
Okay, well, it certainly sounds like he's experienced enough to be, and he has a lot of experience also. He was like the infield coach coordinator, maybe
Yeah.
with the Guardians. And so it goes with Stearns's stated goal of run prevention that he talked about in his end of season conference.
Yes, I mean I think that's the primary reason. That's what Correa, at least to my knowledge, was known for, the way that he's been able to improve the defenses where he's been. So, and I'm sure that's a data and analytical. He's not going out there with this glove, so it's got to be a metrics thing or a positioning thing. So I would guarantee, I didn't hear this from Stearns myself, but I would guarantee that that was a huge reason why they wanted to bring in Kai Correa to improve the run prevention.
Well, hopefully it's the beginning of a lot of positive changes for the Mets because what ails them is a little more complex than you might initially think. I mean, obviously the glaring thing is starting pitching, but there are a lot of areas they need to amend and improve.
Yeah, I would change the core, Kelly. Like, we could have this conversation on what you would do. Obviously, the Mets need to upgrade pitching. I mean, that's an obvious thing to me, but I'd be more looking at how they're going to change the core, because when you think about the production that they got from Pete, Lindor, Soto, Nimmo, well, how do you win 83 games when that's the case? Like, to me, something's not right there. And in part of all four of those guys play poor defense. Lindor's regressed. Soto's not a good defensive player. Nimmo's never been a good defensive player, and he's slowed down and hobbled. And obviously, Pete has, not a good arm, and I'm saying that kindly. So those are factors as well. So how do you improve the club? It's not just, well, go get a pitcher and then everything's solved. I think that there are many things that go into it. So for me, I'd be looking at trying to improve the core or change the core of this team. And I wouldn't do it the easy way. The easy way would be to let Pete Alonso walk. I would not want to do that. I would think that that's the most likely of changing that's going to happen, but I personally wouldn't do that. I would look to trade Lindor or Nimmo and just try to change the feel of the team and the look of the team, and then use that money elsewhere to balance it out a little bit better.
That's interesting. So Lindor, he must have what, 6 years left on his contract?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. 6 years, is it 190, something like that, on
Uh,
his contract. Remember too, Kelly, like, it's not that, oh, I'll get Lindor out of here because he's a bad player. No, he's an aging player. They all are, but his defense has declined. It's not going to get better. He's playing a premier position. Oh, and by the way, he's probably got the most value, because Nimmo's not going to bring back the value that Lindor would be. Maybe it is realistic to move Lindor and not only get that contract off the books, but bring back something as well. Now, again, I'm not saying they're going to do that. I don't think it's likely. It's just something that I would be open to. I think, put it this way, I think either Nimmo or Lindor have to be moved. I don't think you could have a team where you bring back both those guys and Alonso. If you let Alonso go, then maybe you could keep Nimmo and Lindor and have Nimmo DH a little bit and get a better defensive first baseman. That's one way, but there's no way in my mind to keep Pete, Lindor, and Nimmo together and have success.
That's fascinating because a lot of the talk that I've heard about, how to change the Mets talks about that strong offensive production you got from the 1 through 4 spots. And then they talk about changing the 5 through 9. But you're instead kind of looking at the 1 through 4.
Yeah, 1 through 4 didn't work. And do you think that it's going to happen again next year where all those guys who are getting older stay healthy and produce at that level? I would be willing to bet, I don't know this, I would be willing to bet something will change with those four. I would be shocked if they ran it back the same way with all four of those. Now, yeah, you could look at it. Maybe you, Kelley, or some of your viewers or listeners look at it and say, well, I want to bring back those four and then build out the rest of the bottom of the order and bring back a new pitching staff, and that'll change everything. That's one way to look at it. I think that's the lazy, foolish, easy way to look at it. Myself, I think it's a little bit deeper than that, and I would try to get proactive instead of reactive. Whereas right now, it may seem difficult to think about moving on from Nimmo, Lindor, or whatever. And next year, maybe it won't be so difficult. So when you start to see a decline in performance and you know all four of their star players aren't good defensive players, something's got to change there beyond just, oh, well, upgrade 5 through 9 in the order.
Well, that's fascinating, Sal, because I mean, it's one thing with Pete, and we'll talk about Pete in a minute, but
Yeah.
Pete said he's opting out. So, if he goes, then fans might say, well, he said he was opting out and it was initially his choice, even if he doesn't get re-signed. But with Nimmo and Lindor, I mean, they're kind of emotional pieces of this organization. I mean, Nimmo has spent his whole career there. So that would be, and I mean, this is it's bold of you. You're saying, let's not play on the heartstrings. Let's do what we need to do.
Correct. And it's not because I don't think they're good guys or anything like that. I'm trying to build a team here. It has not worked with this core. So the idea of running it back while everybody gets older and probably less productive to me just does not make any sense. So I would look to make a significant change. I don't know how you could look at it and not think of making a significant change. Now, letting Pete go, he did opt out, but they're still going to try to bring him back depending on what the market is. But to me, letting him go would not be the best move. It's the easiest one because he's not under contract. I would want to bare minimum keep Soto and Alonso's bats together in that lineup and then build out from there. That's why I get to Lindor or Nimmo. But yeah, I mean, Lindor has been a leader. Brandon Nimmo has been a leader. So I mean, those are things. Hey, these decisions are not easy. If it were, yeah, the guy's not performing, get him out of here. Well, yeah, that's easy. Then nobody wants him, and then you'd be stuck with him. Just like a couple of years ago where everybody was saying Lindor had the worst contract in the sport. That was just a few short years ago. Now it's, oh, you can't move Lindor, otherwise you're nuts. So I'm thinking a little bit deeper than maybe most are, and I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm saying I would be open to doing it.
Mike Puma says Alonso wants 7 years.
Yeah, what do you say, Kelley? I say no way. I don't think he's getting that.
Well, it kind of reminds me of, I'm an attorney in my day job, and it reminds me of when I'm negotiating a case and somebody always asks for more than they think they're going to settle for. And so maybe he's asking for 7, but he'll take 5.
Right. And I don't know if he's going to get that. Now, maybe he doesn't have the qualifying offer attached to him this offseason, so that should be more appealing for other teams. He had a tremendous year. That should be more appealing. Pete Alonso's power is proven consistently, even with some inconsistencies prior to this year where he had 2 down years. His power has never been an issue. And hitting behind Juan Soto, he is going to drive in a lot of runs. He's going to hit minimum 30-plus home runs, even as he ages. That's why I would invest in Pete Alonso. However, I'm not investing in him 5 years, 6 years, certainly not 7 years, and I probably wouldn't do 5 or 6 really either, beyond, the $150 million, whatever total, because I don't think he's a first baseman. I think he is a DH. So how much are you going to pay a DH? So there are a lot of question marks here. I want to see what the market says. I think the Mets are going to say, all right, see what the market says. And they're going to have their limit. Maybe their limit is higher than mine or yours. Maybe their limit is lower than mine or yours, Kelley. But it's going to be the same song and dance that we had last year. The caveat could be that Pete would probably get a more significant offer than what he got a year ago.
I think so. He had a really good season, and as you point out, he's not going to get the QO. And just if any of our viewers are more casual fans, a player can only get one QO in their whole career. So once you've gotten one, you're done. So he's unsaddled by that. But it's an interesting compare and contrast from last year, because last year, Sal, we had options. I felt like there was talk of Vientos coming over to first, but now the bloom's off the rose on Vientos. There was talk of, well, maybe we could get Vladdy, but Vladdy signed an extension.
Yeah.
So I think that re-signing Alonso is a good choice, and they do just have to get to the right sweet spot on the years and the money.
Now, would you be devastated if they don't bring him back, like many Met fans?
Well, here's the thing is that I've heard it posited, and I don't actually agree with this, but let me tell you what you think, that it would be like letting Tom Seaver go.
Now, I was too young to really be in the middle of the Seaver stuff. I hated when they let Reyes walk for nothing. That made no sense to me. I would not compare Pete to Seaver, me personally. I understand Met fans love him. I don't think it's been on that level. I know he's been a lovable Met, and I know the power's there, and I know the home run record or whatever. People get into that. If I were younger, maybe that would be the case. Being, I'm 46, I don't get that emotionally attached the way that I was, even to somebody like Mike Piazza, who I know you've had on your show before, Kelley. So I can't compare it to Seaver. And I also think that the Mets wouldn't be letting Pete Alonso walk if they didn't think it was the best move for the franchise. Whereas with Reyes, they didn't have the money to pay him or didn't want to spend the money to pay him. With Seaver, I'm not exactly 100% sure what was going on. It was really before my time, but I know there was some issues there with ownership and whatever the case may be. This would be different. This would be a strictly decision based on baseball move for the franchise that they believe would be better off, depending on what Pete gets elsewhere, not committing to that long-term deal for Pete Alonso, if that happens.
I kind of agree with you on that. And I do think it's different this year because, I mean, the regular season body wasn't even cold yet. And Pete announced he was going to opt out. And he probably did that because he was ticked off about last year's negotiations. And so I think that with the fan base, that makes a little bit of a difference. He said he was opting out. And
Hmm.
so maybe it's a little bit easier to let him go. Yeah, he is the home run king of the New York Mets right now. Um, but I think he will still be that for many years to come because I don't think anyone's going to take that crown from him for a long time. So, if he
Well,
goes, I think people could accept it.
hopefully Soto gets it eventually. Yeah, I mean, I think fans would be hurt, but the bottom line is results. If the Mets go out there, remember, the Nationals let Bryce Harper go, they won a World Series. So you could be emotionally attached to a player and be like, how could this organization let my guy go? As long as the results show that it was the right move, that's when I think fans would care. So if Stearns believes, let's just say, Pete gets an offer for 5 years, 160 million. He says, well, there's no way I'm going that high for Pete Alonso. He's got to be strong enough to fight through what is going to be a storm because Met fans will be pissed off that they don't have their guy back. Ripping Cohen, ripping Stearns. They were upset last year. So I'm sure they're going to be upset with the thought of losing Pete. Stearns got to fight through that and continue to build a ball club. And if he builds a better team than the one that won 83 games this year and missed the postseason, I think fans will get over it. Just like they did with DeGrom.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of a shock, though, if he does something like if the Phillies let Schwarber go, if he go signs over there, that would be hurtful.
Yeah, I mean, that's a realistic possibility. Hey, we saw it with the New York Football Giants with Saquon Barkley going to the Eagles, and the Giants had to wear that for a full season. Now, because they're having success, nobody cares about it. DeGrom may be the best comp for Pete because that was under the same ownership as Steve Cohen. Certainly, DeGrom, a beloved Met, and Met fans were upset at the time, but there's no way you could justify giving him that offer. DeGrom gets hurt. The Mets have some success eventually, and nobody cares about it anymore, or not that much. So outside of Evan Roberts, nobody cares about DeGrom as much.
Edwin Diaz, going to be 32 next year. Does he have the Mets over a barrel on? No, well, he hasn't opted out yet,
Right.
but I think he will. I mean, do you think he will?
I do think he will. I would have a myself difficult time committing long years, big money for a closer. I just don't think it's good practice. However, Edwin Diaz has been as good a closer as there is in the game, even though he drives everybody nuts with the lack of control at times or, playing with fire. That's what most relievers do, even the good ones. So I don't think the Mets will be able to find a better closer than Edwin Diaz. I do think they'll be able to find a much, much better value. So maybe the production comes down a little bit, but the value is going to be significantly better. Although my gut's telling me, Kelley, that they bring Diaz back. I'm not sure what Stearns is going to do. Maybe Cohen gets a little more involved there. I don't know what the contract demands are going to be. But in my mind, I haven't moved on from Diaz, and I feel like, for whatever reason, I feel like the Mets won't either.
And if they let him go, they're only going to create another need. And they have a bunch of bullpen guys who are going to be free agents anyway, Gregory Soto, Helsley, not that everyone was in love with Helsley, but Rogers, Stanek, I think all those guys are free agents.
Yeah. Now I'm okay with rebuilding a bullpen in season. Like obviously you're gonna have to make some moves before the season, but usually bullpens can be repaired or built in season via trades and acquisitions, whatever it may be. However, finding a closer on top of all the other issues that you just mentioned in the bullpen alone, forget about the rotation or the core or the lineup. I don't think that they need another area to fill that void. So I would. That's why I think that Diaz is going to be back. I'd be surprised if, for whatever reason, they couldn't come to an agreement.
I like that your theory is just like, let's avoid agita where we don't need it.
Well, the issue is they're supposed to answer the question, not create more question marks, right? You want to have the fewer the question marks going into a year, the better. And I think right now in the offseason, the Mets have way too many question marks. Way for the payroll that they have, there's no way they should have this many question marks. It's Stern's job to eliminate those question marks. They need an ace. They need to change the lineup. They need to improve the defense. And if they lose Diaz, they need a closer. They already need a bullpen on top of that and a rotation on top of those things. I don't know if you could. That's a lot to ask in one offseason, Kelley.
Let's talk about aces and starting rotations since you just mentioned them. Some work to do there.
Yeah, I would. I don't think that they should go out there and just spend ridiculous money on building a starting rotation. Believe it or not, I'm more with Stearns than most people in how to build a rotation. The problem is he took it to another level. He takes it to extremes. Like you don't need three aces. You also don't need five fifth starters. Like the Mets have a bunch of guys who are question marks all over. Even Holmes, who's good, he's a good fourth or fifth starter. Sean Manaea, they thought maybe could be an ace, but he's not an ace. Senga's a number three when he's going well. So they don't have an ace. I would argue they don't even, well, they do have a number two now in McLean. They didn't go into the year last year with a real number two. So let's say they have a number two with McLean. Let's say Tong or Sprode or whoever those guys that I mentioned come back can be a 3, 4, or 5. They don't have an ace. So that's the one thing. I wouldn't be just looking to add pitching, any pitching. They did that this time with depth. I want an ace. Is it going to be Skubal? Is Skeens going to be available? Is there somebody else we're not thinking of? Alcantara, whatever. They need a top of the rotation ace to be paired with Noel McLean. And then from there, if you have a rotation with an ace, McLean, and let's say Clay Holmes and whoever, one of the young guys and one of the older guys coming back, whether it's Senga or Manaea or Sprode or Tong, like that's a nice rotation to me going into a year. But the ace is the biggest part, and that's the hardest part, and that's something they don't have.
Do you think that Stearns will spring for a true ace? Because last season he didn't, as I understand it, he didn't talk to Snell, he didn't talk to Fried. I don't know if he talked to Burns. That was probably good luck because he got hurt
Yeah.
anyway. But
No.
it's
I don't
not
think
his
he,
style.
sorry, Kelley. I don't think he wants to pay for an ace. I don't think he's going to pay big money for somebody else's ace. He wants to draft and develop his own aces and then retain them. That's something that he couldn't do in Milwaukee. That should be the plan. That's going to take some time. He just got here. It's year two going into his, third offseason here. However, they need an ace now. Maybe they could get one via trade, one of those younger guys, as opposed to paying a boatload right now. Tarek Skubal's still under contract for another year. I don't know if the Tigers are going to make him available or not. Alcantara, same thing. Maybe he's more available. That would be the perfect piece. Now, you're going to have to trade a bunch of guys to get him. But still, I think Stearns would rather do that than say overpay for Framber Valdez.
Yeah, or a Dylan Cease. Is he a free agent right now?
I
Yeah.
don't think he's a real ace myself, so he wouldn't be a guy that I would be targeting, but I don't know.
hmm Well, just as a reminder to our viewers, we are here with Sal Licata, host of Baseball Night in New York, and on the Fan every day, 10 to 2. Sal, we're so happy you're here. So it's interesting what Stearns did with the rotation last year because he kind of he did that thing where I want to doubt him, and then I say, no, 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 don't doubt him. Let him cook and see what he does. And it kind of sort of worked with some people and didn't work with others. I mean, he re-signed Manaea, which in fairness, I thought was a great deal at the time. And then it didn't work out great because he had an injury. Holmes was good the first half of the season. The Mets wouldn't have been where they were without Holmes. So I can't say a bad thing about him. But then I think he got tired. Canning was a good signing, but he got hurt. Montas was bad, bad, bad. So, I mean, it seems like he's got a little bit of, he likes to find a bargain. And I just don't know how you square that with, um, what he needs to do to spruce up this rotation.
Every general manager is going to make some bad moves or moves that turn out to be bad. Stearns hit the jackpot with it seemed every move that he made this year, whether it be a free agent acquisition in the offseason, a trade at the deadline, in-season pickup, whatever. Everyone seemed to go the wrong way. That's not going to happen again, even for the worst of general managers. You mentioned it, Kelley. The first year it worked out great. This year, it worked out well for the first part of the season. Then since June 13th on, they were one of the worst teams in baseball, and large in part to the guys that Stearns brought in or acquired after that. So it's year two. It really is impossible. I think Stearns deserves the bulk of the blame for the Mets' failures this year. That's the harshest way that I could say it. However, the fairest way that I could say it is it's year two, and there's no way to properly evaluate a general manager in 2 seasons. The success that Stearns has been because of guys that were here in the organization before him. Let's say Billy Epler. Are we going to give Billy Epler a ton of credit for last year's success, or 2 years ago, whatever it may be? Because even McLean, like that's not a Stearns guy, that's a Billy Epler guy. So it's really hard to fully evaluate a general manager in just 2 years. With that being said, he better hit on the free agents and trades that he makes this year, because those are things that you could evaluate immediately with Stearns, and he failed as bad as anybody could fail last season.
I agree with you that McLean obviously looks great, and he could be the number one or the number two guy next year. Do you think that Sproat or Tong goes in a trade to get someone bigger, like a Scooble or a Skeens, if they're available?
Gonna
Alcantara?
have to, gonna have to at least. You might have to include McLean, and then you do that, and then you figure out who's going to be your number two. Ideally, yeah, you give up Sproat, Tong, whoever else you need to get Scooble or Alcantara. I would bet that sooner than later. I mean, again, I don't know this. I can't imagine the Mets are going to continue the same path with keeping all these guys. You can't hoard the prospects. Yes, you want to draft and develop. You can't hoard them. They have to identify the ones that they want to keep, whether it's Jet Williams, whether it's Clifford. I have no idea. I'm just throwing those out there. Maybe they identify that those guys can be expendable in the right trade for an ace. So, yeah, I would bet that if they were to pull Alcantara or Scooble, that there's a good likelihood two of those three young arms that we saw this year are going to be going the other way, in addition to multiple position player prospects that is going to hurt a little bit to have go the other way.
I don't see him giving up McLean.
Would you do it if it were for Paul Skeens or Tarek Skubal?
There's no better pitcher in baseball than Scooble, I think, and Skeens is probably right
Right.
behind them. The thing is, for Skeens, you've got, don't hold me to this, but I think 3 years of control.
Right. So it's
Yeah, I
more
would do it for Skeens. I don't know if I'd do it for Scooble because you only get one.
fair enough. And it's not just going to be McLean. You'd have to give up more. Now, the idea would be to say, hey, he's under control for one more year. I'll give you Sproat, Tong, and I don't know, pick one, Jet Williams, Mauricio, whatever. Like you're looking at a package like that. I'm with you, Kelley, that I would do whatever I could to prevent giving up Noel McLean. But if you have to, it's something I would consider. I would not give him up for Alcantara. Maybe the better value is to get Alcantara for, say, Sproat, Tong, and Mauricio. Would you do that rather than give up McLean or somebody for Scooble? You probably would, even though Scooble's better than Alcantara. It's all going to be about value, what it takes to get somebody, what the years of control are. But either way, they need an ace, and you should be willing to give up anybody. Hopefully, they don't have to give up McLean, though.
So I gotta say, just like as an aside, having an out of body experience here, you have an incredible stamina for talking. I mean, how do you keep this going? And you were last night you were saying you were on a movie set till like, X o'clock in the morning, and
Yeah.
then you got the show, and then you got today 10 to 2, and you fit me in. Thank you so much. I mean, where does this energy come from?
Well, I love doing it. I mean, I'm passionate talking about sports. So this is not, to me, work. The schedule can become daunting at times, as you mentioned, 4-hour radio show into a TV show, but I don't really step back and think about it sometimes. But man, if I did, 15-year-old or 20-year-old Sal or 30-year-old Sal would die to be where I am today. So I love what I'm doing. I guess that's the easiest way to put it, that Not that I could do every request to do podcasts and stuff, but I try to do as much as I can because I was once there as well, knowing, I just want to talk sports with different people in the media. So it's fun to talk about baseball or whatever it is with fellow passionate fans. But I love talking sports. I love this stuff. So it doesn't really get old for me. Now I like taking a break from it when I'm off. I'm off, Kelley. On the weekend, I'm not doing any podcast stuff. Friday night, I like to enjoy different shows with my wife or whatever. But during the week, I'll do whatever I can because I love talking sports.
Did you ever, I don't know how to say this, did you ever have a normal job?
Yeah, I mean, I used to work at King Cullen. I worked at Home Depot. Um,
Oh,
be-
you're a handy guy. You know how to
no,
fix
I
things?
was a cashier.
Oh,
Before I got hired from the fan, I was working at Home Depot, and there were times where I would do both. Like I'd have to shut my light off at my cash register because they called me to go in to fill in to run the board for Mike and the Mad Dog. And I was like, I'm sorry, I got to leave. WFAN called. So that's how I got started in the business. And then once I was hired full time, I left, and then it's been thankfully a career in media ever since.
yeah, you were there in the heyday of Mike and the Mad Dog. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. For me, that was the dream. I grew up listening to those guys. So I never thought about having my own TV show or anything like that, which is beyond, like, I love that. It's beyond the dream. But I used to listen to the fans, specifically Mike and the Mad Dog, others too, but those were my guys. I'd call in all the time and I fell in love with it. I remember spending hours upon hours listening to them in my room, just sitting there listening and calling after school. When I was working at Home Depot, I'd bring a radio outside. If I was working the garden cash register and listen to them, any break I was listening to them. And I always wanted to be a part of the WFAN family, the way that they would talk about guys behind the scenes or whatever. I needed to be a part of that family. And fortunately, I was able to work my way to where that became a reality, which is wild to think about.
It must have been something back in those days, and I was a listener too, and it was just so good. And, people would call in, and it seemed to me as an outsider that they must have waited on the phone for hours for a chance to talk to Mike and the Mad Dog.
100%. Yeah. I used to call and, busy, 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 busy finally would ring and you're like, oh my God. And then you get on and you hold forever. So yeah, that's dedication. But that's what those guys made me want to do. And I wasn't alone. I know a lot of people grew up on those guys.
I can kind of still, I won't remember the whole phone number, but I can still hear for the nighttime schmooze's voice.
Yeah.
Remember the 718, whatever it was.
937-6666. Steve was another one. I used to call him too. Great. You've had him on, so you know
Best
how
of the
great.
show. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Steve is one of the great guys in the business. I love Steve. Such a kind person. He's got a book out. I can't wait. We're gonna have him on the fan soon. Interview him with the book. Also,
Uh,
Bob Husler. You had Bob Husler on.
yeah.
Bob was the guy who got me an internship. I went to a broadcasting school, met Bob there, who was a teacher, and he got me my internship many years ago, 2003, I want to say, January of '03, I think.
Yeah, he's a first class guy, Bob.
Yeah.
Now, so you started with an internship in 2003, and then how'd you kind of work your way up to where you are right now?
That's just how it was back then, where you would get an internship, you get in, and I didn't know any better. I just wanted to be a part of the fan, and Bob made that happen after school, and then I just learned everything here. They would train me. It was actually a different studio. It was in Astoria back then, but they train you to cut tape and run the board a little bit. But really, as an intern, you're cutting tape, and then you get your first shifts cutting tape. That's how you start getting worked in. Then you get trained to run the board. Then you get some board op shifts, then eventually a producer, and just you work your way up for years, literal years. And then if you're lucky and you have some ability and somebody wants to give you an opportunity, then they gave you an on-air shift. So I did my first shift 2006 Christmas Eve. I want to say I did Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. And then it took another couple of years from there to get back more opportunities. But it was like 2 or 3 shows, which for me, doing a show was great. But you eventually want to expand on that. And then it just so happened that, I was able to work my way up and eventually get more opportunities on the air. I got hired at SNY in 2010 on the air. And same thing, you kind of work your way up there to becoming, I've been there for 15 years now, which is hard to believe. But, now I'm happy being the host of Baseball Night in New York. So just a lot of dedication, Kelley, hard work, and effort that goes into that.
Unbelievable. Well, it's really for the benefit of all of us because we get to enjoy you. And I don't want to take too much of your time. So we have two more things to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So, it wouldn't be an interview with Sal Licata if we didn't do a game show because every night, well, not every night, but often on Baseball Night in New York, you guys have like pretty clever. Please send my regards to your producers because they do a hell of a job. I love like the let's talk about a guy and the
Yeah.
quality start and that whole thing. I love the
Mhm.
segments and they do these cool game shows all the time. So I made a Sal Licata game show.
Oh, I'm excited for it. Go ahead. Let's go.
It's super quick, and so it's based in part on, the first thing is because besides baseball, I basically obsess over food, so it's about food, and the second thing is I guessed, and I don't know this for sure, but based on your name, I guessed that you were Italian American like me?
Very good guess. Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. So we have a very interesting game show that has never been played before in the history of the world. And it is called Guess the Al Dente Cooking Time of Each Shape of Pasta.
Okay.
Okay? You know what
Yeah.
al dente cooking time is?
Um, no, I'm not 100% sure. Is that well done pasta?
No, that's al dente means like kind of dente is tooth, so it's like you bite in and it's just like just tender enough, but like a little toothsome.
So
So it's
not too soft.
not
Okay.
overcooked.
You know,
Just
Kelly, where I know that word from? You've seen My Cousin Vinny, the movie?
yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
So there's a scene in there. Yeah, of course, I forgot you're a lawyer. There's a scene in there where he's asking one of the witnesses on the stand or whoever he's has on the stand, he's examining, and he says something like, "How do you like your grits? Creamy,
Yeah, yeah.
whatever, or al dente?" That's where I know that term from. It's some scene in there with that, but yes.
Lawyers love that movie because, you know, they actually cite, like, real cases, like, their courtroom stuff is actually pretty accurate, so, yeah, we loved it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're using my favorite brand of pasta, and no, I'm not paid by these people, I don't know if that's gonna show. It's
Okay.
Stinchecco. This is, I think, the best pasta. Okay, so we have 6 shapes, we're gonna guess the al dente cooking time that's on the box for each, and the first one is penne rigate, this little penne rigate. Sal Licata, what is the al dente cooking time of penne rigate?
Now, I will preface this by saying I'm a good eater. I'm a good Italian eater. I am not a good Italian cook. I leave that to my mother and sister. Not even my wife, by the way, who's not Italian. I'm gonna say, I hope I'm even in the ballpark here, Kelly. I'm gonna say 2.5 minutes.
Oh my goodness, do you have power tools for teeth?
Well, so that's way too long.
No, that's short.
Oh,
That's basically raw. I mean, it's very organic. Here, let's try
how
something.
long does it take? What would you guess?
This is al dente time is 10 minutes on the penne
Okay. All
rigate.
right.
Okay.
Okay.
So, here, let's try this mezze rigatoni. And this is mezze rigatoni. This is good for like your Sunday sauce. Think when you're having, meatballs or
Yeah, I
braciole.
like that.
You
I
say
like that.
sauce or gravy?
No, I say sauce. We say
I say
sauce.
sauce. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Okay.
would go, see, that looks a little thicker, but also smaller. I'm gonna go, I'll go higher here. Let's say 11.5 minutes.
So close. You shouldn't have gone with the fraction.
12 minutes?
12 minutes, you win, and you
Oh,
win
thank you.
absolutely nothing. You win absolutely nothing, but you still win. That's the important thing. Oh, this one's easy. How about linguine? Like linguine with clam sauce? I didn't take it out of the box. Salicata,
Okay.
what is the al dente cooking time on linguine? Number
Hmm.
7.
Well, now you're gonna have to put that whole thing in there. I'm gonna go, let's go 15 minutes.
Oh, no, you're gonna have spreadable pasta.
Oh,
Go
less.
down. Yeah, because each strand cooks separately. I mean, I
Oh,
didn't take it out of the box because
9 minutes.
no, 10 minutes, Sal.
All right. Well, 10's close enough. That's a win for me. I don't care what you say, Kelly.
Okay, yeah. Okay, we're getting there. Cavatappi. I'll show you this because nobody really knows what cavatappi is. It's kind of like an elbow sewed to an elbow. It's like a double elbow there.
Now, do you cook all this on your own?
Oh yeah, I cook.
Okay.
I cook. Yeah, I like
Mm,
to cook. I like to eat.
I'll say 9 minutes for that one. 6 minutes.
6 minutes. Nice. All right,
All
you're two
right.
for four. That's great. Okay, what do we got? We got two more.
I didn't even know there was this many pastas. We had like spaghetti, penne, rigatoni.
Well, those are the good ones.
Yeah.
Well, this one then you might not recognize. It's called orecchiette. It's here, I'll take one out. Orecchiette means little ears
Let
in
me see.
Italian, which sounds like if you're gonna eat it, it's a little Mike Tyson-y, like, oh, I'll eat an ear. But
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. That's got to be what, like 4 minutes?
It's actually surprising. I'm not sure I would even get this. It's 9 minutes. I think
Wow.
you got to get into that center ear canal there.
See, Kelley, that doesn't seem worth it for me because it's not enough bite for the time that you're like, come on, those are little, that's a little like little, my daughter would eat that maybe.
It would be good if you were making a soup. And speaking of soup, we got our last one. This is easy. This is like the pasta that people who aren't even Italian would eat. It's just a little elbow, just that little thing. You're going to want to go low.
Like 3 minutes, 4, 5. If that takes more,
5.
okay. I was
Whoops.
gonna say if that takes more than 5 minutes, what are we doing here? Now, what do you put that in? Soup as well? Who's eating that?
Are you not patient? Maybe you're not a patient guy.
No, no patience at all.
All right. Well, you were something for something, maybe 3 out of 6. And like I said, there's absolutely no prize, but it was still fun.
If we do this podcast again and I come in person, then maybe we could have a taste test. That I would be much better at. I don't know how
That would
long it
be
takes to cook it, but I could eat it. I'll tell you that.
would love to have you in studio. So, Sal, we close every show, continuing on with the food theme. We close every show with what's good to eat while watching the ball game. And it can be while you're at the ballpark, because I know you are a lot, or it can be Friday night when you're home with your wife on the couch. But, Sal Licata, what's good to eat while watching the ball game?
I am a big, big snacker. I can't watch a game without a bag of chips. Like that's my go-to. Now, if it has to be some kind of food, probably pizza. Second would be some kind of sandwich. Like I've been into Jersey Mike's lately, whatever, or deli sandwich is fine. Something like that, in addition to pizza or one or the other. But definitely, no matter what, have to have chips. I'm a big Cape Cod chips guy, all sorts of different, sometimes the healthier chips, but I need to be eating at least one bag of chips while I'm watching games.
I love chips, and I think Cape Cod is an excellent brand. And I don't know about you, but I love when I get like the folded chip. Do you like the folded chip?
Yes, of course. Yes,
I
the
mean,
extra
it's like two
crunch.
chips in one. Yeah.
Yeah, I crunch for me is even my French fries when I eat fry, I want well done fries. So I like the multiple chip, you know, connected together there, folded up. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think we like a lot of the same foods. And with French fries, it's just so important to jam as many into your mouth at once as
Hmm.
possible. But
Interesting. Well, it depends on what kind of fry. Now, shoestring fries, I'm not really a fan of that. I like a well done steak fry myself. Yeah, I like thicker French fries. Sweet potato fry is good as well. I don't know if I'd go multiple at once. Maybe
well,
like
with
fast food
steak
fries,
fry,
yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Maybe like fast food fries. That's yeah, you want to get multiple in there.
So many.
Yeah. Now,
Sal,
wait, can I ask you a question?
yeah.
Why 3 innings?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Because when I started the company, I felt like casual baseball fans were a little bit left out in the cold. I feel like there's so much talk about stats and, all this, ex-WOBA and FIP and all this stuff. And one thing I actually really like about your show is it's not a super stat heavy show. It's you just more talk, and it's the most pithy 30 minutes, I think, in sports, really. I just love it. So the three inning fan is named after this idea that I had that it was okay if you just wanted to watch 3 innings of a ball game and call yourself a fan. Go out and do something else. I personally like to watch all 9 innings, but I think that casual fans are fans too.
Yeah, no, I love that. And also, it could have pertained to the Mets starting pitching this year, 3 inning pitchers, because most of them couldn't make it out of the third, inning, especially second part of this year. I mean,
There you go. It's a double
yeah,
entendre.
yeah. But
Sal,
no,
you
that's
have been you've been such an amazing guest. You going to come back on the show sometime?
absolutely. And I can't wait to go over. I'm going to go to Baseball Night in New York. I'm going to give you some inside info. We are taping something early today. I forget which game it is, but we got something going on today that we're taping. We did Guess Who yesterday. We might have Battery Mates or something like that. I will tell the producers because you're right. It's not like I love hosting the show and I have fun with it. That show is extremely well produced, and there's so many different guys and girls. They do so well producing the show behind the scenes that they make it so much fun. So I'm sure Kelley appreciate your viewership and you appreciating their hard work.
Definitely. And, I have to say that one thing, a millionth thing I like about it is that you're on all winter long. And
Yeah.
so you always have baseball news, even if you have to make it up. You're there for us.
Yeah, and I believe we're going to be doing a show. I'm not 100% sure again at the QBC, so I'm assuming we'll see you there again. That's how we met. Was that last year or a couple years ago, Kelly? I don't
Yeah,
even
that was
remember.
last year.
Last
Yeah.
year. Okay, so we look forward to being. You're going to be out there again.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, yeah, looking forward to seeing you there. So hopefully we have the show on the road just like we did last year.
Sounds great, Sal. Thanks so much for being with me today.
Thanks for asking me, Kelly. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
And listeners, we will see you next week. Thanks for joining us. Bye bye.